Hello, everyone. I'm Leary. I am the Director of Innovation at the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing. I am super excited to be here with you today at Social Media Day Philly to talk with you about the critical need to verify nurses as social media influencers. Just quick background on me. As I mentioned, in addition to being the Director of Innovation at Penn Nursing, I am also on the Innovation Board of the American Nurses Association. I am the founding member and on the board of SUNCL, the Society of Nurse Scientists, Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders, a contributor to many online platforms, and also the co-host of Amplifying Nursing. So before we begin, I'd like to just take a minute and acknowledge that the land that you are on in Philadelphia is the ancestral land of the Lenape peoples. I'm currently on the coast of Oregon in Coos Bay, which is the ancestral home of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Sislaw peoples. So in the fast-paced environment of social media, it can be hard to establish yourself as a credible source or content expert. One of the ways to do that is through verification. So what does it mean, though, to be verified on social media? Well, basically, it means that you and/or your account are authentic, notable, and an active brand, celebrity, or influencer. Verified social media accounts are usually marked by a blue check mark and have become a symbol of influence and credibility. Most social media platforms currently provide verification based on a submission process. The only two major platforms that do not provide a verification process are LinkedIn and Snapchat. I also don't believe that Clubhouse currently provides verification, though I couldn't find reliable information one way or the other. For this talk, I'm going to be focusing mostly on Twitter, as that is the most popular social media platform used for health and healthcare communication. As noted, getting verified on social media platforms like Twitter comes with benefits: increased authority, ability to build trust with your followers, increased engagement and increased followers in turn, and then of course, social proof, which occurs when people copy the actions of others in order to copy their behavior in a given situation. Social proof is super important when talking about verification of nurses and other healthcare professionals, because responsible public health and science communication can literally be the difference between life and death. And we saw that over this past year during the pandemic. Mass media, especially the news, as well as other social media sites, have a significant influence to play on people's health beliefs and actions. As nurses, we have a critical role to play in how social media sites report on health issues and public health policy. Per the World Health Organization, nurses and midwives make up nearly 50% of the health workforce and account for an estimated 20.7 million nurses and midwives worldwide. This is one of the reasons that the World Health Organization declared 2020 the International Year of the Nurse and Midwife and continued it through the first half of 2021 due to the pandemic. It was the first time the World Health Organization has ever named a year for a profession. And they did this because nurses and midwives play a vital role in the health and healthcare of individuals and communities. Nurses practice and work in every facet where people live, work, pray, and play. Though the vast majority of nurses work in a clinical setting, nurses are everywhere. We're in boardrooms and courtrooms, we're in the military, we're in research labs, in schools and startups, we're in the community and Congress. We're in all these places and so much more, which gives us a breadth and depth of experience unparalleled. As clinicians, researchers, educators, public health practitioners, policymakers, and more, nurses use our experience and expertise to bring about change. At no other time in our recent history has this been truer than during the current pandemics of COVID-19, racial injustice, and health inequity. The pandemic has increased the speed at which health information is communicated, which is why the need for verified expert nurse voices is more important than ever. Nurses are considered the most trusted profession, again, for the 19th year in a row, yet the field of nursing is rarely recognized by the public, journalists, or social media sites as subject matter experts. A study published a couple of years ago now reported that just 2% of health-related stories over the past 20 years included a nurse as an expert source. As nurses, we have a critical role to play in how the media and social media sites report on health issues and public health policy and on what messages the public receives. But scroll through Twitter to examine verified Twitter accounts of health experts, and the vast majority are physicians. During the early days of the coronavirus pandemic, Twitter hustled to verify more physicians in order to combat mounting misinformation that was occurring on the platform. And as much as we need their voices on here as well, for the good of the public and public health, we need more nurses verified and recognized also. LinkedIn released its top voices in healthcare for 2020, and not one voice on that list was a nurse, even though 2020 was being celebrated by multiple international organizations as the year of the nurse and midwife. And it was at the height of the pandemic when nurses were literally risking their lives to help others. One reason for this lack of verification and recognition is because nursing is a field often misunderstood by the public and the media. Most people think of nurses solely as clinicians at the bedside who do nothing more than take orders from physicians, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Nurses are highly trained subject matter experts who work in a wide range of specialty areas and play a big part on how patients, family, policymakers, and the public receive health information. And that's because nurses are uniquely equipped to share compelling stories about individuals, families, and the communities they serve and provide much needed health and public health information. Nurses understand the need for individual interventions, but also the broader landscape of healthcare. They can address structural racism and health inequities. They can connect the dots to bigger social issues like housing, jobs, food insecurity, and education. Our stories are the best way to share our expertise and highlight the breadth and depth of all that work that we do. And social media gives nurses a platform to amplify the influence and relevance of the field of nursing science, to control the health and healthcare narrative from a nursing perspective, to grow our voices as health and healthcare experts, and most importantly, to debunk the fake news, misinformation, and conspiracy theories that circulate on social media. Case in point, last year it was reported that of the top influencers on Twitter, a large portion of those discussing COVID-19 topics were bots. Wouldn't you rather have nursing experts out there giving accurate COVID-19 information as opposed to Twitter bots? I definitely would. So what does the verification process look like? Let's start with Twitter. Twitter closed their verification portal at the end of 2020 and just recently reopened it. I applied as soon as it was open, and I encourage other nurses to do the same. Twitter's process last year was quite unclear and pretty subjective. With this new round, they did increase the clarity of the process, though they definitely made it more difficult to get verified. For example, you see these two columns here. You have to have, well, actually, it's not very clear if you have to have all of these things or a combination of these things, but for example, you need to have a follower count in the top 0.05% of accounts in the same geographic region. Also in the top 0.05% of active accounts in the same region in terms of volume of conversations. You have to have a widely credited hashtag movement that you created, a profile, Google Trends, a stable Wikipedia article, 3 or more featured references within the last 6 months, and a reference to an account on an official site associated with known advocacy work. Not many nurses I know have a Wikipedia page or a Google Trend, and really, how does one know if they're in the top 0.05%? Really unclear. Fortunately, when I applied, my Wikipedia page had gone live the night before, and I do have a number of the other requirements, though I have no idea what percentage my follower count or engagement it is in, but I'm pretty sure that it's not in the 0.05% range. It's unclear how many nurses are verified on Twitter, and to be fair, there's no real way to know how many healthcare providers in general are verified, and that number would be super helpful to know. I did a quick poll on Twitter, and as you can see, very few of the nurses that responded are verified. Unfortunately, I was not verified this round, though I am in good company. There are a lot of other nurses and other healthcare providers who have a much higher follower and engagement count than I do that were also not verified this round. So the mystery continues, at least on Twitter, on how or why one gets verified. Other platforms, it's much easier and less subjective process. This article summarizes them nicely. For example, YouTube is pretty straightforward. You need to have at least 100,000 subscribers for them to even consider verifying you. TikTok, you don't even apply. They just monitor your account, and if you meet the criteria, they verify you. So we say all this to say, communicating science starts upstream. Once it reaches the pages of a newspaper, the nightly news screen, or the Twitterverse, it's too late. We need social media sites like Twitter to verify nurses. The public needs to hear from us, the most trusted profession for reliable, science-based information. And the need for nurse advocacy is at an all-time high. Social media creates a space for nurses to share their knowledge and experiences and have action-based conversations and engagement with others. It is time for nurses to be verified. This talk was based on an article I co-wrote with my colleague, Barbara Glickstein. If you want to read more about this topic, you can check out the article here. And please follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and more. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.